viewers, welcome to my channel Gauri's 3Cs and welcome to the series of videos that I'm creating on my paper crafting tools and supplies. This is part 4 of this series, and today we are going to talk about accessorizing your cards and paper crafting projects. In the previous videos, we have laid the foundation down with paper glue, cutting, scoring, punching, embossing, die cutting and all that, and today we're going to jazz up the building with all the accessories that you're going to talk about. So to start off, the first few accessories that I want to talk about are stamp pads or ink pads. There are several varieties of ink pads available, and but two main types of inks are pigment ink and any solvent based or dye ink. There are two types. The difference is that the pigment based ink is slightly more thicker and archival quality, so if you are into scrapbooking, then you may want to stick to that. The ones that are water based are a little bit, they tend to fade over time, so it could be fine for a card project but may not be the ideal choice for scrapbooking. So those are the types of inks that I have. You get them in small spots like this. If you're just starting off, you could just buy a few of these and get started. They also come there are different brands, varieties, and these are some Stampin' Up ones that I had purchased on eBay a while back. So ink pads, one of the first things that you would want to have. Since we're talking about color anyway, I wanted to also talk about markers that will come in handy. The omnipresent markers, of course, Sharpies are always there. You could use them. The only problem is in some cardstock it may bleed through over to the other side. So as long as you're using good quality cardstock, you don't have to worry about that. But otherwise, markers come in really handy. A couple of ways that you could use them are, once you stamp your image, you could use markers to color, but you could also color your stamp, if it's a rubber stamp or a clear stamp, with a marker, and then use that to stamp onto the image. That's another way to use markers. Moving on to stamps, they generally come in either a wood-mounted rubber stamp, something similar to this. And I also wanted to point out the difference between a solid stamp and one with open areas. So this one, the one with the open areas, is ideal for using your markers and coloring with. And the one which is solid is more ideal for using a craft ink pad or any kind of a pigment ink pad or a water-based ink pad with. So those are the two types of rubber stamps, wood-mounted ones that you get, but there's also multiple varieties of clear stamps that you get in the market. The clear stamps come standalone, so you will need some kind of an acrylic block to mount those stamps on and then use them as a stamped image. Again, acrylic blocks come in different sizes because the stamps are in different sizes. So for example, a stamp of this kind probably is not ideal for this acrylic block because it's a little bit of a tight fit, and if you are not careful enough, it can slip and slide through. So your preferred choice should be something like this one, which has a little bit more space in it, and it's more ideal to use your acrylic clear image on your acrylic block and then stamp it. And these are the smaller ones, which could be ideal for small stamps or alphabets or any similar stamps that you may want to use. So acrylic blocks and stamps there. There are also another type of stamps. Again, I have this one, which is a background stamp. This is called as a background stamp, where you have an entire stamped image. The image could be, you could just ink up the whole ink pad, and there's a certain way you would ink up the whole ink pad and then bring it straight onto your paper, and you could use the whole image for a card. So I also had a couple of examples using this background stamp, and I wanted to just show that. This is this whole image inked up in red, whole image inked up in brown, and a couple of quick and simple easy cards made out of these background stamps. So that's another way to accessorize your cards. Other than that, there are also smaller embellishments like bling or decorative stickers. You have ones that come with adhesive at the back, which can be directly put on to projects. Buttons are a great way to accessorize, so whether or not you are a sewer, if you find buttons on a lower price, and if you could stock up on buttons if you want to use them in your cards, you could punch a hole and then put the button on. You could even stitch that through. There are different ways to use buttons as an accessory for your cards and paper crafting projects. Last but almost last but not the least, there are ribbons. I have a very small stack of ribbons. I know there are a lot of crafters who purchase ribbons a lot. I somehow struggle with using ribbons in my cards. I mean, I do use them to tie bows and knots on three-dimensional projects, but not for cards so much. So I tend to have lesser ribbons, and I tend to use them as well a little bit lesser than the other accessories that I have. I also wanted to talk about these, and I'm bringing back my CropaDile, which I had mentioned in one of my other videos on punching and embossing, and I said that there are a couple of there's a functionality that feature that this particular CropaDile has, which comes in handy when you are accessorizing. So I wanted to demonstrate that bit today. So one is here I have some brads and what are called eyelets. So a brad is just as an accessory that you could just punch a hole through, and then, so this one is a 3/8, this is a smaller one. So let's use a smaller one. You could punch a hole through. Once your hole is punched, you pass the brad through and take the legs and just straighten them out. A lot of times, just to be on the safer side, you could even cover the side because of the prongs that it has. You could cover that with a piece of paper or something like that, so it doesn't stick out. So that is how brads get used. But for the eyelets, you would find that it cannot set it directly. Now these are the larger eyelets, and I have these smaller eyelets as well. The way the eyelets go in is, after you have a hole punched, you set the eyelet in, and to get this portion at the back to flatten, you use this top side of the CropaDile and press that, give it a nice squeeze. When you do that, oops, just smushed it up. I probably don't have it at the right setting, but when you do that, that would flatten the eyelet at the back, and you would have your eyelet attached to your as an embellishment on your card. So ignore this for a minute. I don't think I have it in the right setting, which is why it got smushed. So that's eyelets and CropaDile. That's one other type or one other way you could accessorize your project. Another useful and very commonly used way to accessorize your project is using embossing as a technique. So with this, there are several kinds of embossing powders that are available. The one that I have is just a clear embossing powder. But the beauty of a clear embossing powder is that it catches on the color of the ink that you use. So if you use a solid stamp like this, let's see if we can try and demonstrate. So if you use a solid stamp like this and then a colored ink pad, and you'll have to use pigment ink for this. Water-based inks are not ideal for embossing. So you take a juicy ink pad, ink it up completely, stamp your inked image use some embossing powder to add that on top. And the embossing powder can be used over and over again. So, I'm dropping a lot on this, but it's all going to go back straight onto, back into the container. Just tap it off. This goes straight back into the container. And then this is a tool that you need for this, which is a heat gun, or an embossing heat gun. It's going to make a little bit of a noise. So hopefully you'll see the magic happen as it goes. I'm not going to keep moving it all around, but I'm just going to point it to the spots where the embossing powder would have stuck to the paper. And as you see, you'll see that there's a bit of a shine appearing and the colors darkening, and the embossing powder just melts with the heat and adds a nice stamp, different kind of a look, or an embossed look is something that a lot of people prefer and is very commonly used in card making, along with several different other techniques. I will be putting a few more videos on using this technique in the future, so keep an eye out for those. So that's heat embossing using pigment ink and a handy dandy tool, which is the heat tool. Lastly, there's one other accessory one other way to accessorize, and that's something that I don't use as much, but it's something I had in my stash, which is why I wanted to bring that up. For example, if you have a colored image like this that has you've colored it and you want to give some dimension to that, you could use something like this, which is it's called Glossy Accents, and it does take up some time to dry, so it's not going to happen instantly, which is why I have one pre-done. You're not supposed to shake it, but you just bring the tip side of the bottle and then rub it on the image that you want to add a gloss to. You can slightly squeeze to get the liquid out, or the glossy portion out, and then use the tip to spread it around. When it dries, it is going to give a little bit of a three-dimensional effect to that colored area. And especially in this image where there are balloons, it just seems like the perfect fit. As you can see, this one is something that I have done, and I cannot touch over that. That's going to be wet, but I can touch this. This is already settled in, and it has this three-dimensional, bring it closer to the camera, this three-dimensional glossy look to it. So that's just another accent that you can use in your cards. So I hope you like this whole series that started off with the basics around paper crafting, starting from cutting, scoring, punching, embossing, die cutting, several different tools, paper, glue, supplies, stamps, inks, colors, markers, different other things. But this is all again only to give you an overall idea of where you could start. The sky is the limit when you look at what is available and what can be used, and add to it all your creativity, and the end result is going to be amazing. So I hope you like this video and this whole series. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up, like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next one.